The United States has made it a habit of choosing militarily weak states as their enemies, making a massive display of absolutely asymmetric force and strength and bashing these pansy states into submission before the whole world, almost as whipping boys, so that it can frighten the rest of the world into submission. That was, I think, quite okay in the time of the unipolar power movement from 1990 onwards till about 2010, 2015. Thereafter, it is no longer a unipolar world order, it is a multipolar world order. And to that extent, the simple fact is that there are peer group military powers like Russia and China which have changed the equation. What the world has noted quite clearly is that America is very chary of putting boots on the ground in Ukraine against a peer group military power like Russia. It is pretty chary of tangling directly with another peer group military power like China. And it picks on weak countries like Iraq, like Libya, like Afghanistan. And even there it has gotten bogged down for almost 2 decades and more, and paid a huge cost in blood and treasure. The playbook is very standard. Demonize the leader of that state as devil incarnate, paint Saddam Hussein as a villain who's trying to get weapons of mass destruction. Only America has the right to own them and use them, right? But in so doing, but even this weapons of mass destruction propaganda turned out to be absolute hogwash. There was no proof whatsoever, but it was used to, conquer Iraq, grab hold of its oil, and then torture and hang Saddam Hussein, right, to set an example. The simple point is that the Iraqi armed forces realized they were in no position to take on Americans directly, so their strategy was to go guerrilla. They went guerrilla, and for the next 8 bloody years, the United States was stuck badly in Iraq. The Strait of Iraq was almost trifurcated, destroyed more or less, and the ISIS emerged from that chaos. Iraq was more or less devastated as a state. The Americans spent about $3 trillion and hundreds of body bags they lost in this futile campaign. Now, for the last 2 days, we've been seeing a war dance of victory after their operation against a pansy weak state like Venezuela, right? And a war dance, absolute war dance of victory, kind of triumphalism emerging from Washington. We can do it to anybody. Some of them seem to be suggesting that they can even capture Putin or Xi Jinping, or there are some suggestions made of that they could do the same to Modi ji in India. Hold your horses. I think your triumphalism may be quite premature. Yes, you managed to abduct the president, the serving president and his wife, in an absolutely buccaneer piratic operation of smash and grab, gangsterism, a prime example of gangsterism, and you may have taken him to New York Metropolitan Court to stand trial. But the simple fact is that Venezuela has not fallen. The Venezuelan Supreme Court has said that the Vice President of Venezuela, that is Rodriguez, Vice President Rodriguez, is now the President. And she has said, we will never consent to being a colony of the United States. We will safeguard our oil resources, right? She has asked for the return of Maduro. Just yesterday, Donald Trump was announcing in ringing tones, we will run Venezuela. We will, revive its oil industry and grab it all for ourselves, kind of a thing. More or less, he was suggesting that in so many words. Now, this entire smash and grab operation seems to be unraveling, because initially he said that the Vice President is quite agreeable to doing what we tell her to do? Well, she said no. The Venezuelan defense minister, the Venezuelan army chief Lopez, the Venezuelan paramilitary chief are quite prepared to fight it out. They are activating, they have mobilized their forces to resist any large-scale landings of troops. They have mobilized their forces to prevent large-scale landings, beach landings, etc. And they have planned to go guerrilla. There are about over almost 1 million, men in uniform and those who have been trained to do guerrilla fighting, to put up, prolonged resistance, like in Iraq, like in Afghanistan, like in Vietnam. And they are quite prepared to fight it out, because it is a question of rallying around the flag. It is a question of national self-respect. And they are not prepared to act as sellouts, a whole nation of sellouts, to the United States of America just because it is displaying overwhelming strength. So what? So what? Overwhelming strength was used for over a decade in Vietnam. There are more bomb craters in Vietnam than there are craters on the moon. But what happened in the end? The Americans had to fly out, run out, escape from Saigon, hanging by the rails of their helicopters, the wheels of their helicopters. The same tamasha we saw in Afghanistan. People trying to hang on to the wheels of aeroplanes in their desperation to get out of Afghanistan. So I think the Americans begin well. All their military campaigns begin very well because they prepare slowly, they amass troops, they use a hammer to strike a fly, and then they make a big song and dance of it. But at the end of it, they tend to get bogged down. What I am surprised is, as a military analyst, that despite all these military historical lessons, how is it that the American military security establishment did not work out likely end states, likely missions, likely goals, time horizons for their achievement, and exit strategy? Before you go in, you work out your exit strategy. You work out your time horizon. You map out the campaign that you want to fight, what aims you want to achieve. Previously, the aims we were told were to bring Maduro to justice. Well, you've achieved that. So now call it off. No. Hours after that, the aims were enlarged to, we want to run Venezuela. We want to grab its oil. It's just smash and grab. We want to grab its minerals, its gold, its everything. We want to turn it into a colony. I'm afraid that justification doesn't stand international scrutiny. You can always tell us that it is the era of might is right. But what we are clearly noticing is upper limits to American military power, economic power, political heft. It's largely getting confined to your own hemisphere. And even in your own hemisphere, this Venezuela operation could spin out of control even now. Because if to enforce control, if to grab their oil and mineral wealth, you have to send in boots on the ground, you run the risk of casualties, body bags. It all sounds very good to start with when it is a casualty-less campaign, absolutely no American bloodshed, just one American helicopter damaged. Then quietly we are told a few American servicemen injured, but they are fine. But then when body bags start coming in, that's when the problems start. And if body bags start coming in when you're about to have a midterm election, well then best of luck to President Donald Trump. I really thought that triumphalism was premature. It was uncalled for. Threatening that they will do this to any country in the world and suggesting that it could be done to India. I hope you know that India is a nuclear power. And it is not exactly a pansy or a pushover like Venezuela. And even the Venezuelans could give you hell once their spirits are aroused. What one was pained as a military analyst was that a number of Indian military analysts, a number of Indian political geostrategic analysts started doing the round saying, oh my God, America has shown its power. It is simply too powerful. No country in the world or combination of countries can stand up against it. Says who? The power is yet to be tested against peer group military competitors like Russia and China. Right? North Korea is a nuclear power, and if you are thinking of doing a regime change a la Venezuela in India, well, India is a nuclear power. You might as well think again. And all this talk of we are so technologically superior, we totally did suppress the SEAD, carried out SEAD of the S-300 surface-to-air missiles. Even India had done that in Operation Sindoor. The Chinese S-300s were totally, they were bombed out, they were jammed, and they were destroyed. We had destroyed their radar cover. Even we had gotten through. So, it's not such a big deal that S-300s have been suppressed. It's not such a big deal. And yes, you can always buy some people for all the time. And they were trying to buy Maduro's pilot so that he could whisk him out in 2025 to the United States for this kind of a drama. It didn't work. Then now they have tried this snatch and grab. And now Donald Trump is saying that the next person on the list is Vice President. Well, how many people will you smash and grab like this? And by holding individuals, can you bring a country to its knees without putting boots on the ground? Simple military logic doesn't suggest that that is feasible. You'll have to put boots on the ground. You'll have to occupy pieces of terrain, at least the key pieces of terrain. And if you don't occupy the whole country, then you have to be prepared for hit and run guerrilla raids from places which you haven't occupied. The entire oil industry can be frozen. The Venezuelan trade unions can play merry hell into whether Chevron or Exxon Mobil or whosoever, if they try and run their wells. If the local people don't want it, if there is national resistance, if there is national pride is invoked, and the Venezuelans rally around the flag as people are wont to when they see their country is under attack. No highfalutin principles have worked here. Even the opposition hasn't endorsed the attack. The only person who was showing her big teeth was that lady who's just been handed a Nobel Peace Prize. And even Donald Trump said that she didn't have the, the faith of the people or the heft of the people to be made the acting president. So there is a lot of slip between the cup and the lip. It's one thing to do a victory war dance, but it can be sad if you do it prematurely. You have to work out your end states, your exit strategy, and the time horizons, the force committal, and your overall strategy. It is surprising that doesn't seem to have been done, and we now seem to be going ad lib. Jai Bharat, Jai Hind.